Heroes and villains. I like to make a picture. The picture's blurred, the skin tone, purple, black, red, motley streaks, strands of hair has come into view, dead leaves, gravel and dirt. The camera moves back and you see a body in water, face down in the water, a woman's body. This is the grim reality of many detective shows today. The criminals are sadistic, the crimes are horrific, and they're the villains. The detectives, in all their diversity, which we know, from Columbo to Vera, are the heroes. But today I'd like to contrast that with the 1960s, what I call the golden era of television, depicting us in our humanity, in our full humanity, and the human condition, often concerned with the human condition. And I'd like to highlight today the show some of you might remember called The Naked City.
Yeah.
There are 8 million stories in The Naked City, and this is one of them. I've got the whole collection at home and I've watched them quite a few times.
All 8 million?
Yeah. So, like Hitchcock Presents, they're anthology series, and each week you'd see a different story. And they weren't really crimes. They were really about things that happened to people in their lives. And somehow or other it ended up that police needed to be involved. The detectives were Adam, Frank and Mike. And some of the titles depict the writing, which I think is really great writing, and the themes. So some of the titles were The Virtues of Madame Bovary, Her Life in Moving Pictures, Barefoot on a Bed of Coals, The Multiplicity of Herbert Connish, Sweet Smiling Face of Truth. I had to stop there because I kept wanting to write more of the titles because the titles are so poetic. And my favourite is King Stan Davis and the Knights of the Round Stable. And in these stories, often New York, we know, was very multicultural because a lot of people, the famous stories of after the war, many people migrated to New York. And even before the war, it was a lot of Irish were there. So it was a very multicultural city. And Naked City portrays that diversity in ethnic cultures. And this particular story is about a man, and he's Polish, and his wife is having a baby. And that sort of starts off the story of how it evolves into the police being involved. And the birth of his child then connects to something that's been happening in his everyday life that he put aside. But his Polish ritual came into the story because in Poland, when you've got something happening in your life, you need to deal with it in this particular way. And he had a friend, his friend who he had the issue with. So he got a bottle of alcohol and he called his friend and he said, Eddie, or whatever his name was, you have to come with me. And they went to a cold room and they sat there drinking and talking about what their issues were. And this is what a detective story was in Naked City. And the police were called in because people were concerned, like Eddie worked in a delicatessen, so people were concerned that that something might not have been right. They knew that this was going back to the old country, and they knew that there was some problem happening between them, and so they said the police better go and check. So the police had to find them, which was half of the problem for them, and they eventually found them in the ice house. And when they got there, by the whole series, most of the episode was about the two guys sorting out their problems, fighting, drinking, fighting, more drinking, and you don't know quite what's going to happen, if it's going to become violent, but it doesn't. And when the police finally get there at the end, they're just lying on the ground, friends again, because they'd sorted out their issues. No one was dead, there was no blood, there was no grime. There was really no villains. It was a story about humanity. And so I think in terms of villains and heroes, I think I'd love to see our television go back to the 1960s and depict something about what humanity is really about.